It's Friday, and I know we've been doing this a lot anyway, but we're going live, baby. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta for another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers, this time at the end of the second round of the NBA draft. We'll look to set the expectations and define the expectations when it comes to the 76ers draft haul, if you will, in this NBA draft on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And last night, the Philadelphia 76ers take Johni Broome, a super senior out of Auburn, twice as senior, twice as nice. 5 years, 22 years old, 6'10", originally a Florida kid. Keith, what was your reaction to Broome becoming a member of the 76ers family?
You know, initially I was a little surprised. I was, and the reason being is because, you know, there were some other guys who I felt like who had bigger upsides. You know, other guys who could be better rim protectors, maybe a whole lot more athletic than he is. But the more I thought about it, it didn't bother me, right? And the reason being is because, you know, you look at this guy and he's a winner. You know, he put, you know, he was the National Player of the Year. You know, you have Auburn, you know, they made it to the Final Four. You know, I just looked at this dude and he's a winner. Now, again, here's the thing with him. He's an undersized 5, or he could play power forward. You know, defensively, you know, he's not as athletic. He may get in trouble guarding certain players. But when you have a Dembona and you have these other guys, you look at him to be an energy guy, a guy who can grab rebounds, who can do other things. So as long as everyone stays healthy, I look at him as a guy that you can say, okay, he can be a rotation type of guy. But if you were looking at him and saying, okay, I'm looking at this guy to be the star, to be a superstar, then I would have gone in a different direction. But if you're assuming that everyone's going to be healthy and we just need this guy to grab rebounds, do other things, I'm not upset with it at all. I'm just not, because I like his leadership qualities.
If you like the maturity of a VJ Edgecombe, you're going to love the maturity of a guy like Broome. And what I go to for this is he was counted out, went to Morehead State. Then he made the transfer to Auburn. So he had to work his way into play for a major university like Auburn. And then he's counted out again in the NBA by being a second-round pick. And I know there's gems in the second-round pick. I know a lot of people throw like a Carlos Boozer comparison on this guy. Some other people I've seen Julius Randle comparisons and all that stuff. I'm not going to go that far with it. But look, if you can get a rotational player in the second round of the playoff, or the second round of the NBA draft, that's a successful second round as far as I'm concerned. And I think he can be a rotational player for you. And you're right. If you're looking at a Dembona, and the thing I love most about a Dembona, the athleticism. He can run up and down the floor. He can jump. He's got good spring in his ankles there where he can get right back up to the rim for putbacks. Well, Broome ain't that. He's more, I don't want to make it sound like he's lumbering or anything, but in comparison to a Dembona, he is certainly that. He's got a great power game, played very well against Florida in the Final Four, the team that eventually went on to win the NCAA tournament. Showed up in that game with 14 points, pulled down 7 rebounds, had 3 steals in the Final Four game, also 2 blocks to go along with it. Also helped Auburn get off to a pretty strong start in that game. So he's certainly someone that doesn't shy away from the moment. And when you talk about younger guys being drafted and, you know, the lottery picks and all that, which is always the case, you talk about your 18, 19-year-olds with the high upside usually. You're not talking about that with a 22-year-old. You're talking about a guy who has been around, who has been more of a man amongst boys when you're playing at 22 years old, and also a super senior, as I put it before. So you want to see how he does when he plays against other men, other guys that have been around the NBA, guys that are 30 years old, whatever, and certainly can match him in terms of speed, because it ain't that much, but see if they can match up when it comes to strength. And I think that's one of the parts of Broome's game that has certainly put him at least being the 37th overall pick in the NBA draft, being a guy that could certainly compete when it comes to the strength of his game.
Yeah, and here's something else I'm gonna say. Like I think that, and again, I get it. You know, some people may say we don't like the lack of athleticism and things like that, but you know, I look at it as you got a guy. You're gonna, of course, everybody you get is a gamble, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's kind of sort of like a bargain in a way where I like his body, right? Thinking, you know, he's a big dude. But also, let's just say the 76ers are unable to sign Gershon Yabusele. Right now, they both have different, you know, Gershon's a way better shooter than him. Gershon is more athletic than him. But the similarities are that they both can play the power forward and the center position. You know, he's taller than Gershon. And to me, it's one of those things where you look at him. He's also someone that they're comfortable with, someone that they know. Like, you know, I asked him yesterday, I said, you know, have you spoken to the 76ers during the pre-draft process? And if so, what did they tell you? And he revealed that 2 years ago when he went through it, you know, when he was about to come out for the draft before he went back in, he sat down and he chatted with the 76ers. And so with that being said, he has an idea of what the team, you know, will expect from him. He said, they told me that they what they like about him. And what he needs to work on in college. And he came back and he said they were impressed with the jump he made. He said they are excited about the things I can do that's going to translate, making plays, obviously defensively, and my touch around the rim, and my playmaking, rebounding at a high level. They are excited about all those things. So again, it's like when you make a pick and you gamble on a guy, you know, if you had a conversation with him 2 years ago and some of the things you wanted him to correct, he was able to work on and correct them. You know, I think that you probably feel more comfortable taking him if you think you have a chance to win this year, as opposed to going and getting the young guy and not knowing how he's going to develop. So
yeah,
me, that's what that was all about.
I had a similar thought going back to your Gershon Yabusele point. Yeah, he can't shoot nearly as good as Gershon Yabusele. That's definitely part of his game. I mean, he's got a little mid-range game, but he's not going to be knocking down threes the way Gershon Yabusele would from time to time. So that's not happening, at least not yet. When it comes to Quentin Grimes and it comes to Gershon Yabusele, I never really thought Gershon was going to be able to return. It doesn't look as good, certainly, now that you have drafted VJ Edgecombe, that Quentin Grimes would come back. Does it look more and more like the Sixers in terms of maybe reserve players, in terms of Gershon and also in terms of Grimes, that these two rookies are going to be taking those positions?
Yeah. And it looks like that. Yeah, it really does. And, you know, and the one thing is we look at the bodies. Well, first of all, Edgecombe, as we talked about yesterday, you know, everybody wants to project on who he could be and this and that. But he is extremely athletic. He does have some developing to do. But when you look at Broome, he's NBA ready. You know what I mean? Now he does have some weaknesses, but again, to me, it's like I look at him and I look at kind of like Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, but Jalen Williams at OKC. Mm-hmm. And the comparison I have is a guy that's a winner. A guy that is happy, he'll come in there and do what he has to do, dive on the floor. He'll do all the intangible things to help a team out. Now, he has some weaknesses, but he's going to be happy for anyone who's out there. You know what I mean? And when you come from where we're talking about culture, the 76ers culture was abysmal, right? So you're bringing in two guys who are high-quality guys, two guys who are leaders, and things like that. And that only helps, especially when one guy is a winner. You know what I mean? One guy is a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to tell you that this episode of Locked On 76ers is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Tyrese Maxey has already reacted to VJ Edgecombe and potentially VJ Edgecombe already being in the gym. We love those gym rats. They don't like leaving the gym, Keith. We'll talk about that. And also set the expectations when it comes to the starting five of the 76ers next year, in the upcoming season, I should say. and also what it means for the Sixers bench. Talk about that and more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. I've told you guys before about Skims. When I found Skims, oh man, they were making underwear for men. I was intrigued. I was like, let me give that a shot. I've seen so much about the quality on social media and whatnot, and let me tell you, it's all worth the hype. I've always had underwear issues. Come on, while we're being real, putting it out on the table, just finding the right style for me. Skims changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, whatever briefs you're into. Skims is where it's at. I've tried Skims, and I'm hooked, let me tell you that. These are the perfect active lifestyle underpants, okay? When it comes to Skims, they move with you. They never lose their shape. They stay in place all day. Whether I'm working out, as often as I work out, and running errands as well, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, lightweight material feels amazing. Also, when it comes to feeling a little light, makes you feel like you're wearing nothing at all. I shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com, and you should too. Let them know that you watch this program. Make sure you mention Locked On 76ers when you're at Skims at skims.com. Keith, when it comes to setting the expectations for the starting five, we talked a lot about VJ Edgecombe yesterday. We talked about a ceiling. We talked about Daryl Morey urging Sixers fans to be patient, more or less, when it comes to the development of his first-round pick, his third overall pick, VJ Edgecombe. We have established that when it comes to Johni Broome, he's an off-the-bench guy. He's a rotational player and looks to hopefully keep improving as his NBA career starts and advances. When it comes to VJ Edgecombe, you start carving out the starting five spots for this Philadelphia 76ers team, and this is living in a world where you're having your best starting five out there, which would incorporate Paul George and Joel Embiid. Does VJ Edgecombe right away move into that starting five spot, or do we even have to be patient for him to work his way into being a starter?
You know, I think that's going to be one of those things that's really going to depend on who comes back, right? You know, when someone says be patient, that tells me that he's probably not going to start right off the bat. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, if let's just say, assume if they can still go out there and get Quentin Grimes, if they can still do that, you know, to me, I think that the starting five would possibly be Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes at the 2, Kelly Oubre at the 3, Paul George at the 4, and Joel Embiid at the 5. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that would be it. Or if they can go out and if they feel like they want to go a different direction and bring all these guys off the bench, I think that we could see, and I doubt it though, but I think that we could see Kelly at the 2. Now, he would prefer that if he comes back because he loves playing that above the 3. And then maybe Paul at the 3, and then somebody slotting somebody else in, you know, at the 4. But to me, I think that the fact that they're saying be impatient now, you know, the second day after he was signed, before they had any practices, any summer leagues, you know, I would have to say that he would be the you know, coming off the bench. But, you know, it's going to be one of those things where I think that when we look at PG, Maxey is going to have a ball in his hands, but we're going to see a lot of instances where Paul George is probably going to be handling the ball, because it's going to enable other guys to get in their spots and take advantage of their strengths. So I think that we'll see Paul, like, you know, orchestrating the offense, which is going to free Maxey up at times.
Yeah, one of the things about the Edgecombe thing that we didn't get into yesterday was if the Sixers were to take Ace Bailey, we had spoken last week about the possibility, even Monday of this week, talking about the possibility of Oubre coming off the bench if you're going to have a guy like Ace Bailey, because you're not going to have Ace Bailey and Paul George, you know, most likely start in that lineup. You're going to have one, you know, certainly not Paul George. Somebody's going to come off the bench. So that would be Kelly Oubre most likely. But you're right. Kelly Oubre loves playing that 2 spot. I love him personally when he's able to really be a little bit more of a swing man. But with the starting lineup like this, you're most likely looking at him potentially being a number 2. But the question I want to ask you is, if Grimes does come back, living in that world for a second, is there any possibility to letting Tyrese Maxey go back to his more natural position of his two guard and having somebody else more so concentrate on more of the point guard role of making sure everybody gets their touches?
You know, it's weird because I don't know if Grimes is a better, like, because when Grimes was there, you know, they were talking about, yeah, we'll see if he can be a backup point guard. You know what I mean? Like, I think that he can he handle? Yes, he can handle. Like, you know, all these guys were probably point guards in high school, right?
Right.
But I don't see him as like the starting one. Like, I just don't. I see I see Maxey, but I also see George. Like, I see George bringing the ball up. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, you know, PG is a guy who's been known to handle the rock and do certain things. And, I just feel like he's getting a little bit older now, you know, this and that. I'm not saying I'm going to see Paul George in a half court set and I want him to run the offense. I'm saying, like, if you notice how the Sixers are at times, you know, Maxey will get the ball and then he'll slide it over to somebody. That person will scoot it up, and then, you know, they go from there. But also, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. When Paul George was healthy, I liked the way he looked when he was orchestrating the offense. Now, there were certain times where I felt like he was too passive, you know, where I felt like, yo, P, shoot the ball, man, shoot the ball. Stop passing it. But I think that if you have these athletic guys, like right now, we're playing to people's strengths, right? Quentin Grimes is a good catch and shooter. Maxey gets out in space. He goes downhill, and he's going to get it. The same thing for Edgecombe, right? You know what I mean? He attacks the basket. So to me, if Paul George has kind of lost a little bit of something, you know, that might be best for him. You know what I mean? Now, again,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's best for him. And then let's face it, like, when we talk about Maxey, that, you know, that's a lot of pressure on him to run the show all the time. And teams are going to be easier to defend them. So I feel like PG might be better suited to share some of those duties.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, and I'm one of them most of the time, when the term positionless basketball gets rolled out there, because Keith, I don't know how you are, but I just, like, there has to be some version of organized chaos out there. So somebody's got to run point. So I have no issue in terms of the point guard position, though, with this team as it's constructed, that you are going to have guys share the ball as far as not just scoring, but also who's going to be facilitating the offense. And that's also a word I don't normally like, but right now the Sixers are putting us in that position where they don't have that true point guard, unfortunately. Now, speaking of Tyrese Maxey, there was one thing that was really interesting. The reaction Tyrese Maxey had to VJ Edgecombe. And Keith, as you know, if you don't put it on social media, we have no idea how you feel about it. So Tyrese Maxey captured the 76ers picture of VJ Edgecombe, basically saying, welcome to Philadelphia, welcome to the 76ers. And Tyrese Maxey, who, as we all know by now, met with VJ Edgecombe during the workout and during the meeting when he came into Philadelphia. And he just put out one word with VJ Edgecombe, and the word was tough. Tough. I get the sense, and look, if he's not excited about it, he's not putting anything out. But if that's one word you're going to describe a soon-to-be Philadelphia rookie athlete with, I think that's a word, Keith, and you've covered this team, and you've covered athletes in Philadelphia for a long time. I think that's a word that will resonate with a lot of people in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it will. I mean, it'll resonate with a lot of people in Philadelphia. And I think that is a pretty good description. So, and then the reason it's funny that you brought this up, on my train ride back from New York this morning. So I'm on Instagram, and they're showing highlights of when what's his name? When Edgecombe was at Long Island Lutheran playing against Justin Edwards and MO Charter. And so I saw the dunk that he had on him. And I think a lot of people are killing Justin, but Justin was a little bit out of position. The guy just got him, right? But he got him. But it wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like you still is a poster thing, but it was kind of like the guy was trying to make a play, whatever. Stuff happens. It wasn't as bad as I thought what people said. But the thing that stood out to me today was he got in his face afterwards. And, after he just start yapping. So I'm like, okay, so at this point, you are kind of sort of like not high on the radar at that particular time because he was a junior, right? I mean, he was one of the nation's top players involved to that. But at one point, Justin Edwards was the number one player in the country, and he slid a little bit to number 3. So depending on that time game was, to me, that showed me that this guy is tough and has a lot of confidence. It's not a lot of guys that's going to run up on somebody like that and try to like embarrass him or get in his face like, I'm here to stay. I'm here to stay. I like seeing stuff like that. I do. I mean, I really love seeing that. I love the competitiveness. So when he called him tough, yeah, tough as nails. I mean, he's tough. He's tough.
Do you think he'll return Justin Edwards' soul to him after taking it that day with that dunk? Do you think he's brought that back with him to Philadelphia? Here you go. Sorry, I took this from you.
I think, to be honest with you, like that dunk, I don't think Justin was even concerned or bothered by it. Like Justin was out there taking names in high school. Like, I got to figure out who won the game. Because, like, that team, that MOTEP charter team was really good. Like, I got to go back and see, I got to go back and see who won the game. But I'm telling you, Justin Edwards, he ain't worried about that. He probably was like, I would love to see what the next couple play possessions were like after that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I would love to see that. But Justin Edwards, he ain't worrying about that stuff. And it's
fair enough.
You know what it is? They're just going to laugh at each other in the locker room.
Good enough. I want to ask you this when we come back, and it's kind of more of a formality. What takes place now? I'm seeing VJ Edgecombe already in the gym during the second round of the day of the second round of the NBA draft. He's already in the gym working out and all that stuff. I want to get into that as to what happens next for a lot of these guys. That's when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta, back after this. And how about that Game Time app? Want to go to the game, the concert, the comedy show? Game Time app has you covered. Ever decided at the last minute with the group, hey, let's go to a game? Game Time app is the best way to do it. Oh, the money you'll save on tickets as well with the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets on another site for less money, another app for less money, Game Time will credit your account 110% of the difference. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. NFL games, MLB games, nothing like being there for the crack of the bat, or an NBA game, the squeak of the sneakers, hearing the swish go through and all that. Game Time app has you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets, as you could view the seats vantage point before you buy the tickets on the Game Time app. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We will get into a couple of our comments as we are doing a live taping of this edition of Locked On 76ers. We'll get to your comments coming up in just a second here. But what happens now, Keith? You just, by the way, teleported from New York back to the Philadelphia area, of course, back from the second round of the draft this morning. So what happens next? You got to go over the practice facility, meeting guys. What's going on? What happens next?
Yeah, so they're going to have their introductory press conference. VJ Edgecombe and Broome are going to speak to the media at 11:30. So basically in an hour, they're going to a little over an hour. So I'm about to zip and get over here. And then what's going to happen, I'm pretty sure they already have been in the locker room, probably got a tour of the facility, this and that. But after this, what they tend to do is they tell guys, okay, you can go home for a little bit. Like if you want to go get some clothes, or if not, meaning like, travel to where you came from. But next week or in a couple of days, I don't know exactly what day it's going to be, but what they're going to do is they're going to get ready for Summer League, and they're going to go to the Utah Jazz Summer League, which is going to be exciting because we're going to see VJ Edgecombe go up against Ace Bailey in one of those games. So that's going to be exciting for Sixers fans. And then after that, they go to the NBA Summer League. So This is when the guys are going to put in the work. And then I expect those guys, the rookies, to either go to LA with the team if the team does something in LA, or they're going to stay at the practice facility, especially Edgecombe, knowing his work ethic, and just get it in. Get it in. I'm talking about the rest of the summer.
Anything, last thing I have for you, I do, because I'm curious about this. You're getting to meet these guys, you're getting to talk to these guys. Is there anything that is on your mind? Like there's something, I got to ask VJ this. I got to ask Johni Broome this, like that kind of thing. Is there anything on your mind that you're really curious about right now?
From them, not really them, but I would like to know Daryl Morey, what was his thinking, with the Broome thing. Like, right now we're talking about giving our opinions, but, there were some other guys who, had other upsides. And basically, why did you go that route? And then also, like, it's funny. The thing that I really want to know, like, Kelly Oubre does have a player option, so it's up to him. But I want to know, like, especially if Nick Nurse is here, like, who's a priority in this rotation? You know what I mean? Like, how does it impact other guys? Like, how does it impact a guy like Kelly Oubre? How does it impact realistically your ability to you think to re-sign Quentin Grimes, although he is a restricted? But how do you think other teams are going to overbid, knowing you can't come back and get him? Right.
Is it Oubre, Drummond, and Gordon are the player options?
Yep. Oubre, Drummond, and Drummond and Gordon. Yeah.
And Gordon. Good times. All right. So I look forward to hearing what they have to say today at their press conferences and all that. Let's get a couple of comments in here. I know somebody was agreeing and backing up what you were talking about. Green Blaze there, Keith. Keith, I am so glad that you said that. I think this was in regards to Paul George. Yeah, running the point because it proves his point about the whole draft. The main things that we needed in this draft was a good point guard. And unfortunately, they don't have that, but PG running point might be a good thing for the Philadelphia 76ers. Also, Matt Forstater as well. The 76ers character clearly exposed by OKC and the Pacers' success. We had to draft super character guys to counter the you-know-who's of the team. I don't – somebody called me on the carpet for saying that, like, character doesn't matter. I never said character doesn't matter. Character absolutely matters, but I think ultimately the talent of a player – is the biggest possible thing, and swinging for the fences with a number 3 overall pick is still, I think, what the Sixers should have done with Ace Bailey. But that doesn't mean I don't like VJ Edgecombe. That doesn't mean I hate VJ Edgecombe. I love everything about the guy except maybe taking him at number 3. But the culture of the 76ers does need to change because you're still it. And I believe that started with Tyrese Maxey and his attitude. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite parts of the end of last season. I don't even think I acknowledged this yet with you, Keith. One of my favorite parts of last season is when Tyrese Maxey, right before he left for the rest of the year, didn't play with the finger injury. He said, if I'm playing, I'm not trying to lose. So don't ask me questions about trying to lose games to help the few. Like, if I'm playing to win. And at that thought, I thought to at that moment, I said, God, I love Tyrese Maxey. Please bench him for the rest of the year. I love that that's his attitude, but that's also part of the culture that I think the Sixers are trying to shuffle in right now.
Yeah. And you're right, but I'm gonna leave you with this though.
Yes.
Before I came to the Enquirer, I was living working down south, and I was a college beat writer. The football coach covered a college football team. The football coach was this real Christian guy, and all he talked about was religion, this and that. Mm-hmm. And one day we got on the topic of high character guys, right? You need high character guys. So then the coach says, Pompey, can we go off the record? Can you shut the tape recorder off? I said, yes.
Oh, boy.
He says, yeah. I love these choir boys. Now, he's a football coach. I love these choir boys. You know I do. But in order for you to win a couple football games, you need a couple thugs. You need thugs. I'm like, he says, yeah, you know I'm a Christian boy, but I love me some thugs. And I was like, whoa. So it's true. Like, so my thing is, like, if you're really, really good and you play with an edge, people will put up with it if you're gonna be that guy, if you're really that guy. Like if Michael Jordan had character problems, people like, hey, guess what? He got 6 rings. We don't care.
Right.
It's normally for like, you know, the role players and this and that, but you need more of the choir boys, so to speak, to balance everything out to keep everybody in line. But
Right.
I remember this guy saying it's like it was yesterday.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Keith, another fun-filled week, especially with the draft. I know we're going to be getting into more stuff next week when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers and the next steps for VJ Edgecombe, for Johni Broome as well, and getting ready for Summer League. Can't wait for that. We appreciate you guys watching. We appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe on Locked On 76ers. He's Keith Pompey. Make sure you're following and reading all his stuff on Inquirer.com. I'm Marc Farzetta. I got you guys tonight for your Locked On Phillies postcast after the Phillies try to rebound from getting swept and scoring just one run against those Houston Astros. They go to Atlanta for a 3-game series starting tonight with Mick Abel on the hill. That's a 7:15 start time. I'll have you guys for the postcast after that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Back with you guys on Locked On 76ers on Monday. See you then.